Chris Seaman is an artist that one cannot help notice. His vibrant artwork, which is often celebrating a love of horror with a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, is immediately identifiable as the shock of white in his hair. Seriously though, his hair is so friggin' cool. Nancy Thompson in A Nightmare on Elm Street cool. And his coolness does not stop there. Chris is also the first artist to provide us with exclusive bonus material for, drumroll please, Concepts and Legends officially starting a Patreon. But more on that after Chris's interview, which will be starting right... Are you done? Which will be starting right now.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so you've got quite a lot of stuff to discuss, and we'll start with the. I read that your favorite movie is Gremlins.
It's one of them, yes.
Now, I wanted to know because you're a horror. I was like a horror buff. I wanted to test your sort of your knowledge. Did you actually know about the original version of Gremlins?
So when it came out in the 80s, I was actually just talking to somebody about this. My parents took me and my brothers to go see it. And I was about, I want to say I was like 6 or 7 years old. And it scared the hell out of us. Me and my brother cried the whole time we were in the theater. It was so frightening, but have learned to love it over the years. And it's one of my favorites, particularly with the Christmas season.
Yes,
it's
right.
Definitely my Christmas movie.
It's the reason why the PG-13 exists.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna hope. I mean, also too, the original version of Gremlins was so much darker. I mean, Billy's mother got beheaded by one of them.
Gosh.
And her head goes bouncing down the stairs. It was like really dark.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, now that would have really freaked me out, me and my brothers out.
That would have been a hard one.
I think my parents took us because they saw Gizmo and they were like, oh, this is cute. This is a fun kids movie. And it was like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what Gremlins is. It's like, it's meant to have that, the juxtapose of the beautiful Christmas story and the super scary.
Do you think that because of that formative experience, I mean, do you think that sort of ignited your sort of fascination with horror? Because you've got a very strong horror background with your art.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, I've always had an interest in like creatures and creature design and monsters in particular. There was I always pull from my childhood. There's something about the nostalgia that I like to keep with me when I work or when I'm working on a painting or get an assignment from Magic or D&D or something. And certainly I take that into my own work as well. But like, there's always been an interest in the dark, just out of my own curiosities of my own fears, that I like to kind of bounce on, and particularly if I'm working on, say, one of my Cameo Creeps projects or, maybe a personal piece that's kind of horror related. And it's also just really fun to draw and paint scary, gross things.
Do you think that, I mean, now, when did you was there a piece of art or literature that really that you consciously took to that really sort of got that horror fire going? Because I know what mine were, but I'm wondering if you had one for yourself. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you do.
Gosh, I want to say that I had a pretty, for the most part, as a kid growing up in the 80s, I had a pretty sheltered childhood. We didn't really see a lot of rated R movies and things like that. But I can tell you what sparked it was a friend of mine who lived down the street was a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the discovery of Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street kind of started piquing my interest about what is this? Why is this scaring me? Why am I afraid of this? And of course, then I realized pretty early on that this is all special effects. And these are all the art of it was what got me into it more, I guess.
I see. Okay.
So that was kind of like the idea that wow, these are fantasy worlds. They're just scary fantasy worlds. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it just happened to be that. So, yeah.
What's interesting about that too is that Nightmare on Elm Street is sort of like if you were, growing up in the suburbs, like I was, that movie really spoke to the notion of like being a teenager in the suburbs, and sort of it was a unique experience of like what do you do with all that anxiety. It was sort of like the flip side of the Breakfast Club. Like there was the version of there's the Breakfast Club, which was like not how things were, and I feel like my teenage years are closer to Nightmare on Elm Street than to the Breakfast Club.
Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of time, with friends. We weren't really like athletic kids. So we were, it was kind of like the dawn of Nintendo and, coming out of Atari. So there was this whole group of us that would just play video games all the time. And we used to have these like sleepovers where, a group of us would all just get together and stay up like all night long playing the latest Castlevania.
Oh, I love Castlevania.
The Super Mario 2 was one that was like really big when we were all of age, and we all had, were gaming and stuff. And so, there's a lot of loves for a lot of different genres that I have. And I've always had, and I think will always have. I will always enjoy video games, movies, television, special effects, gaming. The art of it is what I really cling to.
And so when was the first time, like, because I could do the, the traditional stuff, like, when did you first start drawing? But we all know, like, you started early. I mean, these things, it's clear that these things take root very early. So what was the first time that you got a really like rewarding paying gig as an artist?
So fresh out of art school in 2000, as the year I graduated art school, I went to Origins Game Fair in Columbus, Ohio. My art school was in Columbus. I'm a graduate of the Columbus College of Art and Design. And that summer, there was the Origins Game Fair. And a friend of mine who worked at Hasbro at the time, I had seen, I want to say like around Christmas time that year in the early 2000s. And he had said, hey, you should really go to gaming conventions to show your portfolio around, because I think you'd be a really good Magic artist or D&D artist. I think there's a lot of stuff in your portfolio that would fit that genre. And I'd been a gamer since I was 13. And I was very familiar with gaming and very familiar with comics. And so it was, it was just a natural fit. So I decided to go to the game show, the convention, and got to meet an art director from Wizards of the Coast there. And he invited me to participate in the Harry Potter card game. And I did about 13 paintings that first year for that game.
Wow.
And that was my first substantial paying gig in the business. And I was just at Gen Con in August, now that everything's kind of starting to get back to a little bit of some normalcy. And
right,
I saw a box of Harry Potter cards, like a booster box, going for $1,000. And I was like, man, I wish I would have kept mine.
Oh, no, God, really?
I know. Wizards gives us all stuff for, for products. And so I had I was so excited. It was my first job that I just started giving packs away to friends and like, look, I like my cards, but
who would have thought though? I mean, who would have thought? I mean, the Magic cards alone it's mind boggling, but like, do you think Harry Potter, I mean, it was big back then. I mean, it was huge, but it was like, more about the movies, I guess, or you know what I mean? Like it was all the hype for the movies. You couldn't predict.
Right. Well, so, it's interesting. So the card game had the art Bible they give us for, concepting, they do a conception thing and then they put together all in kind of like a world Bible. And then they'll give the world Bible out to the artists. And this was before mean, the internet was still pretty much in its infancy, so we weren't getting PDFs. We were getting hard copies of these books, and spiral bound and everything. And I remember it was all based off of the book illustrations. And the movie had come out in 2001.
Right. Yeah.
And so the first film, the
Sorcerer's Stone, was it?
Yeah. Sorcerer's Stone. Sorry. Warner Brothers had decided that this is the direction they wanted to go from now on with their product lines. So the card game was canceled shortly after the first film premiered, and so it never really it really was starting to get a lot of traction.
I see.
It was doing really, really well, but for whatever reason, the legal side of things, you have the canon that they wanted to start creating for Harry Potter was film only, so anything that was book related was kind of tampered down and squashed. So
that seems like a boneheaded move, Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I kind of understand. I mean, there's been a couple of times in my career when I've been working on something and something else will come out. I remember, and I think this just has to do with how the flow of pop culture goes. And as an example, like up until Suicide Squad with Harley Quinn, we only saw Harley Quinn in a certain look, with maybe she might have pigtails, maybe she's in the red and black outfit. But after Suicide Squad, we saw that look all over the place.
Right.
So there's something about I think there's an understanding from the corporate side of how things are going to go with canon and how they're going to push a look. And so, I mean, as a freelancer, I'm just an arm. I'm a cog in a wheel, so to speak. But but I wish it would have lasted longer because it was really a fun gig. It was a really, really fun game to work on.
Yeah, and back then, J.K. Rowling wasn't, just she just won't shut up. She won't shut up. I don't get it. I guess that's what $1 billion does. It just sort of think that there's no reason for me to stop talking because
right.
I'm like, woman, do you have any friends? I'm just like, you decide and be like, listen, Jay,
on an island now,
yeah, right? Oh gosh. So then that was basically that was your big in though, because you're through the big Hasbro door. So we'll talk about some. I obviously want to talk about the cameo creeps, but one card that I feel like it's the cards that you do for Magic. It seems like it's. I know this is not necessarily something that's assigned, but you've gotten some really awesome assignments and some incredibly powerful cards under your belt that I've seen personally kick my ass on Arena many times.
I'm sorry, but not sorry.
Don't be sorry, because I've used the very same cards to others.
There you go.
The Meathook Massacre. That one is great, but okay, a couple of things about it though. The original sketch version that you did was, as a horror fan, I feel like I was like, oh, they toned it down, and then because of the cropping, you kind of lose the pools of blood at the bottom of it.
Right.
Was that kind of a bummer to have that kind of, you get a card like the Meathook Massacre and you're thinking, okay, I could just go, where can I take this? And then you sort of had it wasn't censored, but it was sort of toned down. And then because the cropping, can't really be helped.
Right. Yeah. So when I had originally gotten the assignment for that, the description called for all of those gory things.
Really?
They were in the description, corpses hanging in the back, and the pools of blood was my idea. The little, place to clean their knives while they're chopping up body bits. But, so it was pretty open. And so I just went for it, and I pulled from my imagination, and also pulled from kind of some of the things that were in the style guide, as far as like the character that's doing the chopping, and designed by the fantastic Steve Prescott. Did the concept work for those characters. And so, so I wasn't thinking anything other than, all right, well, we'll just make this like,
a Meathook Massacre,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre and magic, is kind of where I was going, the Leatherface type character. But like, so I got the first round of stuff approved. The sketch was approved, no problem. The preliminaries were approved, no problem. I went to go to the painting, started painting, turned my painting in, and they're like, could you tone all this down? And I was like, well, what would you like to see? And they're like, well, just take it out. And I went, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a very different tone.
Yeah, so I'm glad that as far as the mood of the painting is concerned, from kind of an artistic aesthetic, I was really pleased that the mood still was conveyed. Because I guess that's like my goal artistically when working on magic is, well, how do I set a mood, with maybe a cinematic flair to it that is, has a punch or a power to it that's other than just like a cool character, like doing cool stuff. How do I use that mood to convey the story as well that achieves what magic D&D art or magic art directors want, and that I also then am satisfied as well. So was I disappointed? A little. But that's okay, because it's just part of it's just part of being an artist and working in this industry. You have to understand who you're catering to, when it comes to doing images that might be a little too sexualized or a little too gory or gross. I've always thought of magic as being PG-13.
Right.
But we can get away with a little bit. We can kind of fudge things. So, if I was doing more, over the top stuff or X art, like we're in different categories, we're in different territories, we can do different things and explore different venues there or avenues there. So, I understand it. Well, was I offended? No, not at all. I understand that.
And one thing that I find that's pretty cool about it, and I don't know if this was intentional, but the way that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre uses light. Like most of the terrible things that happen in that movie happen during daylight or dawn is happening, and you use that in the Meathook Massacre too. It's a clearly broad daylight outside.
Right. He's doing it right there. Yeah. It's not in the darkness, and I think that's what makes it even creepier. For me, like. The fact that this dude's getting away with it, and
right,
selling it.
He's doing it with like his coffee. He's like picking up, having coffee, and then butchering a person.
Right.
And then one more thing about it that I wanted to say, I don't know if you noticed this, but Sheldon Menery, he's basically the guy who created the format of Commander. I mean, he's the founder of the Rules Committee, one of the founders of the Rules Committee. He pointed out, and I don't know if you saw this, but from a distance, the hand actually, it looks like a little monkey swinging. If you ever have a chance to look at it closer?
Oh, I've never. I'll have to go back and look at it. I didn't know that.
It's almost it's hard not to unsee, but it's great because it's just like it's so well, like it works perfectly.
That's awesome.
He name checked it. He was like a card that gets removal. He's like a hand that looks like a monkey. I'm in, and I was like.
That's great. I mean, so one of the things that I really enjoy about working in games is, I'm literally in my studio all the time by myself. I get emails, I do Zoom chats or whatever with art directors, and we kind of work, come to the meeting of the minds there and solve the problem for what the assignment requires. One of the things that I just absolutely adore about being in game and as a game artist is how the fans of the games react to what I've made, because they will find things that I had no intention of even or any idea that I was doing something. But it kind of starts to go into the zeitgeist of the community. And so there's these little Easter egg things that start happening. And like, that's just fun. Because that's what it's about. I mean, if you're having fun with it, then by all means, please continue, please continue.
Well, it shows that you have a good sense of that because of the way you reacted to it. Because I'd imagine that would be maybe not magic artists, but I've met some pretentious people in my day who might have been like, oh, that's not the meaning of what I did. And it's just like those people kind of, like you could probably pick out the cool people from not cool people just by how they react.
Well, I guess it depends on how serious one wants to take oneself.
Well, how many times one says one in a sentence? It's usually
exactly.
Oh, that's the worst, right? They're like,
right.
I'm like, yeah. One once. So cameo creeps. Now that is huge. I've seen your displays. You have like a almost like an entire store. Not almost. It looks like a storefront full of like just actual stuff. I mean, what was the impetus for this project, and what did you expect it to blow up?
No. So the idea was I had come up with the concept prior to doing a convention in Pennsylvania called a LuxCon. I had done a LuxCon. I was there from the third one. I think they're on the 14th one now. But I had gotten into the show, and it's a fantastic convention if you've never been. It's very small, and it's the best contemporary fantasy illustrators from around the world attend this tiny little show in nowhere, Pennsylvania. And I'm in Ohio, so I was like, well, it's super close. I know some people who are going, and I've heard good things about it, so let's go and check it out. And decided to do the show, and it's a juried show. You have to be juried to get into it. And so I had just doing that particular show, I realized that there was a large collector base that attends this show, and they prefer to buy small things. And because the collectors are buying big Boris Vallejos or, big John Palancar paintings or something. So they were interested in like the smaller, lower priced items. So I decided to do a series of these little miniature Renaissance monsters because I just thought that was fun and clever, and I was having fun with it. And it took me no time to do a painting, this big, maybe 4 hours at the most to do a little from pencil to paint, a little painting. And I decided to put them in little miniature oval frames. The inspiration from that came from the idea of, I tried to put myself in the world that I was creating and said, well, back in the day, they would put lockets, a soldier would, get a locket of hair and a little portrait of his girlfriend commissioned so he could, or wife or whatever, significant other, and wear it as a locket and go off to battle with the intention of probably never returning, or, at least being able to have a little memento of them while they're away. So that's where the oval idea came from. And as I was researching that, I couldn't really find any lockets that I liked, because I was originally going to put them in lockets and have a vampire fang with the portrait of the vampire, or a werewolf hair with the werewolf character. There was kind of that idea there that kind of got me to where I am now. And so what I discovered is that I couldn't find these frames. They were really hard to find. So I bought the batch that I found and did the paintings. I think I had 11 or 12, and took them to this convention and sold out of them. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And so I decided to do another batch of paintings. So I did another 11 or 12 paintings, and at another trade show, I sold out of them there. And I'm like, okay, well, either my prices are too low, which they probably were at the time, or there's interest outside of what I was working with. And then I had a really great conversation with Pete Moorbucker about pushing where I could take what I had created. Initially, the idea really was, I'm just going to have fun, but I'm going to create something that I like and subject matter that I like and costuming that I like, and I'm just going to pursue it and, see what happens with it. And Pete had suggested, well, you should do reproductions of them. And I was like, that's a really good idea. Because the potential for it to do something else other than, so then I kind of came up against all these obstacles with it, which was, well, how do I get the frames? Do I put them in packaging because they're really small? Do I, how do I get all this made? How do I do this? So I had to start from scratch, and I just started researching local companies, local printers, injection molded frames, packaging manufacturing. The idea too is that these were something that could grow outside of just my original ideas too. And that they have the potential to, kind of become a collectible onto their own. Mm-hmm. And so we kickstarted in 2016, and in total we did about $32,000 to start the company. And it was very successful, and it was so successful we actually ran out of the first batch of 1,000 frames, because I had gone from selling 25 at a convention reproductions. So I tested the waters. I guess every step of the way with this project, I tested the waters before I took the deep dive. Right,
like, it's nerve-wracking to make.
Oh, absolutely. And it was like, well, how much money do I want to invest of my own money into it? And is this even worth it? Is there potential for it to grow? Is there, and I had tested it out at another convention of just selling reproductions, and I learned a lot in that process, and learned that people were more interested in the idea that I had a pack. So I would hang them individually on the wall, and then when somebody bought one, I'd slide them in a bag with a carded bag that had their bio info on it, and like people were like, whoa, this is actually different than what I just picked off your wall. I really like this. I like that there's a thing that I can hold and look at and collect. And I went, oh, that's awesome, that's great. So then we have to pursue that. So I mean, through the Kickstarter there were all these challenges that I've had to meet, and it's been really satisfying. It's really hard to share these types of behind the scenes things with my social media because it's kind of boring. I mean, it's not like you're watching me paint something all the time. Like but there's a lot of little things that have happened in the process of growing it and nurturing it, and it's been the people that I've met through the process, and it's taken me all over the country doing trade shows and conventions and stuff, and it's been really awesome.
And I was looking through and I saw Elvira, and I thought, well, okay, there's no way in hell that he's doing that unless they got sanctioned. And then I saw that indeed you did, which is pretty freaking cool. I mean, how did
it was awesome. It was a really cool. Her license is up at the end of the year, so in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to be done selling her. So
okay,
that'll be it. It'll be the last time you can get her. So, but yeah. So in 2018, I did a convention, Monsterpalooza, in Los Angeles, California, and that's a big horror trade show. A lot of celebrity horror actors there, mm-hmm. and a lot of special effects people from the industry, from Hollywood, are there. And her rep stopped by my booth and was like, hey, she saw these and she'd be interested in doing a license with you.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I pursued that and got the license, and it opened up doors in other areas for the business, which was kind of doing more recognizable characters and creatures and things. So unfortunately, because of COVID, so COVID hit like right in the middle of our licensing deal, which was a bummer because in 2020, I had kind of I had a plan on where I wanted to go with this, but the world was in such a state that I didn't know if I wanted to. I felt it would be best to kind of pull off a little bit. Let's cool our jets before we go in guns blazing, so to speak, with like full on licensing properties and all that. And, because I didn't know how things were going to unfold with COVID and stuff. So I didn't want to and start investing dollars into something that there's never going to be, never going to be conventions again. So we're going to have to figure out other ways to make money. And, so there was just, like I said, there was just too much in kind of floating around in my head that I thought, well, I better watch doing too much. But what did come of it was a fantastic distribution deal with Diamond Distribution, and the Cameo Creeps were able to get distributed through there. But it's also opened up this idea of doing more licensing in the future of creatures and characters that are a little more in the pop culture realm. I look to Funko Pop as kind of the guru of licensing. I still figure out how they managed to do that.
I think it's just a matter of paying your dues as far as just time goes, because they've just been around for a while. I believe they've just been around, and so I think that there was a time when they were up for grabs. But now with you just gotta read your Fangoria, I guess, because there's all these, Friday the 13th is still in limbo as far as licensing goes. That's not even that they can't make another movie right now because people are still fighting over that. So that kind of stuff. But and by the way, have you read Elvira's or Cassandra Peterson's autobiography? It's good.
Fantastic! I'm glad to hear that. Awesome. I haven't read it yet. I've been so. I don't know what happened. So after COVID hit, my schedule just went crazy. I've just been so busy that I haven't really done much else other than make art and travel to what little conventions I could travel to. And so, it's a happy problem.
Right. Yeah. Now, stained glass is sort of, as you can see from behind me, in the War of the Spark painting that you did for Magic. That's incredible. Now,
thanks, man.
How do you, and you also in Sanctuary too, that one's, just your stained glass is crazy. Did you study that particular way of doing things? Was that something that was just innate in you as an artist, or did you take to it? Did you draw a lot of stained glass just because it's almost, it's eerie how real it looks?
Wow, thank you. That's an awesome compliment, man. I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no. When do you?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
I was just when do you hone in a skill like that, because it seems so specific?
Yeah, it's so I really I wanted to do the rose window from the cathedral in Notre Dame for the painting Sanctuary that I did based on the Hunchback of Notre Dame story. And I realized that if I fudge that in the storytelling, then I felt that it wouldn't be as powerful. Because it's a very classical piece of artwork.
Yes,
St. Paul's window is. And if I want to homage it, then I really have to do it right. And so through the process of painting that, I learned how to fudge how to make it look real, how to fudge how do I want to say that?
Well, you just
it's all about value and color. It's all about value and color and how you punch it up versus what's next to it to make it look like the wall next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, it's high key color. The color is really intense, and there's everything then that comes next to it is not as intense. So you can kind of make the distinction that this is a window and this is a wall.
See, now that's how long did that initial first time of doing Stingo, how long did that take you to do?
That painting took well over, I want to say close to 400 hours. So there's 260 panes of glass in that window. It took an hour to do each one.
Wow.
That's not including the rest of the background, the figures and everything. So, I mean, I stayed up on a stint to finish it for myself, and for someone had asked me to do it for a project. But I had stayed up for 32 hours straight to finish it. Ooh. And so every hour I was knocking out another panel. But in that process of that intense focus, I learned how to do it really quickly. So maybe the first 2 or 3 that I had done panels, or maybe I want to say the first 10, let's say the first 10 panels that I did. So 10 hours in, I was discovering how to make it look like that. So we got high contrast, high chroma, a lot of color, very bright colors that create the effect of light shining through it. And so yeah, it was like, kind of like a training myself on how to do it. And so by the end, it was like breathing water. Don't breathe water. Folks, don't breathe water.
Breathe water.
We want you to be alive.
It's just
breathing air.
Light water, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're a merman, you go for it, or Aquaman. But the point is that it became natural to me to do. It became just a second, another tool in the toolbox that I could pull out when I need to use for the types of jobs that I get now. So
see, now there had to have been somebody who saw that painting and was like, okay, well, we need this person doing our stained glass, because I feel like if you hadn't have done that, it would almost be like insane to take on a job worth like such a like finite amount of time to do that without having had some prior experience. I mean, like, yeah, those first 2 panels must have been really difficult, just I'd say psychologically, probably, because you're probably like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into?
Right, exactly. That's exactly what happened. I went, oh shit.
Yeah, right, exactly. But the amount of detail that goes into it. Now, one of the things that another thing about, I'm sort of circling back to the Camo Creeps because I wanted to ask about it. What's kind of weird is I think H.H. Holmes, and that one was specific for a Chicago event that you did, right?
Yes.
Now, did they request that? Because I'm curious about that, because it's sort of as people who don't know, H.H. Holmes was he was a famous serial killer from the Chicago World's Fair in like the late 1800s. He created a murder hotel, basically a hotel with fake doors and fake hallways, and there was a furnace at the bottom of the hotel where bodies could be burned. This guy was one of the most creatively
notorious,
devious. Now, did they ask you to do that, or was that sort of like your idea?
That was my idea.
Now, do you think that because of the separation of time, like would you be able to do like a modern, like would you like it? What do you think the stopping line would be for you to like say, like, would you do a Jeffrey Dahmer, or would you do a more modern incarnation, or do you think the time separating it makes it easier to sort of see them as the character?
I think when so there's a couple. That's a really good question, man, because I've kicked around this idea for since the beginning of Cameo Creeps. Well, how far do I want to go? With the idea of with the idea of Elvira, getting the Elvira license and then potentially growing into other more recognizable pop culture characters and creatures and legends and stuff. Yeah, I kind of have always kicked around this idea of maybe doing like an FBI file version of these, serial killers. But it really comes down to, one, are the victims' families still living?
Right.
That's a big no-no. I have no intention of hurting or reopening any of those wounds ever.
Right.
And then it comes down to, okay, so if I can't do that, then that takes out, a whole bunch of stuff that's happened in the contemporary society that I can't touch. So then it goes, okay, well, how far back can I go in history, American history or world history or otherwise, to represent the legend of what those things are?
Right.
So, I have every intention of doing a Jack the Ripper cameo creep.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is related that was related to him is alive. I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty sure that window is passed.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly. So, and HH, so I mean, it's the Vlad Tepish did him, but I'm also tweaking them so they're more of a monster,
right,
than a real life portrait of them.
Right.
Kind of, certainly don't want to like glorify that kind of stuff, but it's also interesting. It's scary, but it also, like I said, it kind of falls into the legend of pop culture, and so we're in this other territory of the fantastical meets the real, and so there's an opportunity to explore turning them into living life monsters.
Right. And it's like Alan Moore, I don't think any less of him because he did From Hell, and I think that really is actually, you put it perfectly. I think it really kind of boils down to whether or not the survivors' families are alive, because that really is that's what's going to cause the really brutal pain for somebody to see it. But I think you're right. Once that window's done, it becomes more of a legend as opposed to a file or an FBI case, sort of.
Right. I mean, if you look back in, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or like General Custer, or like the American Legends of the West, like Bonnie and Clyde, or
right. They've all had movies made about them.
They're all American legends. They're part of the American tapestry. Are they great? Are they good? No, but they're still a part of the American tapestry. So how do I represent that in a cameo creep with a horror bent to it? So
and what's nice too about horror is that a lot of the great properties are just public domain too. It's like
right.
Dracula, Frankenstein, all those goodies. It's like
Frankenstein's tricky. So we start getting into kind of the universal monster stuff. So that's different because those are all still licensed properties. So the classic Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man is great. The Invisible Man.
So these are all, so these are all properties that Universal Studios still owns and is willing to license them out for money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always tricky. So this first round of horror icons, so I did the first set of cameo creeps, which are my original monsters line, and then I have the horror icons line, which was spurred on by Elvira and her license, and I was like, okay, well, let's take this outside of that. And so all the characters then that I decided to do are all, the copyrights are open to interpretation. I don't have to pay somebody to do them. So that was the kind of the first round. So I'm constantly thinking of, okay, well, how can I pick something that people are going to recognize versus interest versus, the demand for having some type of character that's like that, but also then that it's free for me to do. So I've picked a lot of authors. I'd like to do Bram Stoker. He would be a fun one. So, I've got H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe and Mary Shelley, but once again, we're tweaking them so they're monsters now.
Yeah, I will say this: your H.P. Lovecraft, he looks better in your paintings than he ever did in real life. He was I felt kind of mean for saying that, but he's not gonna hear because he's not listening. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But he kind of looks more handsome as a possessed version of himself.
Right, exactly.
At least in your version, it's just Cthulhu that's possessing him, as opposed to in real life the rampant racism and homophobia.
Right.
Eating him alive. And your Edgar Allan Poe's kind of cute too. I was just like, wow, you did him justice. I think they would be very flattered.
Yeah.
It's certainly Elizabeth Bathory too, because the paintings about her are weird because you look at them and they're not really, there's not a lot of synchronicity with the way she was painted. They sort of are four different there's the famous ones, and it's how did you pick what made you pick the version that you chose? Because you based off a painting. So
I kind of went more for a gothic version of her with the black hair and the red dress, and but it was just to kind of the little bit of research that I had done on her, and of course I've heard her story for years. The little bit of visual reference that I had done on her, I was just kind of like, well, I think there's a little something more here to her, and try to bring her to life in that way.
One thing interesting that I read one of the things that I read about her recently, or was that her maybe that people think that she might have been framed because of the implications of the people that would have gotten the land that she had.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, there's been all these scholarly papers written about it, and I'm like,
whoa.
She might have been set up.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
It's good stuff. Now I am watching the clock because I know that you've got stuff to do, and I'm trying to be smart about that. But one thing that I have to ask, this is actually a fan question. They wanted to know about the risk factor, which it was not the original name, was it?
Risk factor. No.
Yeah, it was dangerous. I'm completely blanking, but it was
dangerous contraption or something.
I'm shittyinterviewer.com. I should know this, but I just brain farted so hard I nearly cracked.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
So risk factor. Now they wanted to know about the origins of that. Now what was the art direction there, and where did the story come from? Because it's a very disturbing image. It's almost
right. So the art description was pretty simple, pretty direct. They said, we want a goblin with a contraption on his head that's attached to a machine, and he's basically shocking himself and not quite touching the button yet to do it. And so that was kind of the genesis of that one. I mean, but yeah, that happens a lot though. We'll get descriptions and names will change once they go to print. That happens pretty regularly.
It's like the sad goblin. I mean, you put such pathos into it because he doesn't look particularly thrilled about doing this.
But yeah, exactly. So that's what I was like. Okay, well, how are we going to make him happy that he's getting ready to do it, or are we going to kind of pull from Ghostbusters where Bill Murray's shocking that dude until the gum falls out of his mouth? Where do we want to go with this?
It almost made me wonder if it was sort of. I mean, I knew it couldn't have been it because it had to be. It wasn't on Phyrexia, but it has a Phyrexian vibe where you wonder if there's somebody some Phyrexian off to the side forcing it to happen for whatever reason. But it's certainly got a real pathos to it.
Yeah, man. Well, that's cool. That's awesome. That was the goal.
And So before I let you go, I will ask a couple more questions, and then we'll do the little bonus part. But the first thing that I would like, or one of the first of the last questions, that was so epically beautiful the way I just said that.
No worries.
Do you have any projects that you are allowed to talk about now that are in the works? And if so, what are they?
Okay, so I have quite a bit of Magic stuff that I cannot talk about.
That's the good stuff. NDAs.
Yeah, so that I can't talk about, but I will be in a lot of upcoming sets in 2022 with a lot of new stuff, a lot of new cool cards, a lot of new cool things. So I'm trying to keep that incredibly vague.
Don't worry. I've talked to a bunch of people, and that's pretty much the answer I think you can give, and that's
exactly. In this space, this is what I have to say. But I'm also working on a book with Topics Media and Macmillan Publishing, entitled. Well, actually, don't know if I can tell you the title.
Untitled. It's Untitled.
I actually want to talk to the writer before I say anything about it or go public. But it's a very, very cool book. It's for gamers. It's not a game book, but it's a very clever take, a very clever editorial take on Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
So it's very, very fun, and I'm having a lot of fun working on it. And
when do you anticipate this to be out?
That will be out in the fall of 2022. That'll hit shelves then.
And the cameo creeps and original paintings. Another fan wanted to know: do you have any of your original pieces from Magic, or from any games? I mean, do you have any of them around, or have they all sold?
They sell immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all sell immediately. I mean, I'm really lucky.
You haven't kept
one? I'm sorry?
You didn't keep like maybe one, or you don't have one for your like private collection that you have, or?
No.
Wow. Okay.
No, I wish that I was in a position where I didn't have to do that, but I have to make a living, and this is a job that I look at as a job, and I'm always looking for the next job. So, I mean, it's just I wish I could say that that's something that I could do, but the demand is so intense, and the money is very good.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, I'm cool with it.
It's kind of, I mean, I don't judge you at all. I'm just, the curiosity for me is a fact, but I personally, I understand that. I'm like, it puts you in a very rarefied place as an artist to be able to command that kind of money for original work. It's statistically next to impossible.
Yeah, I mean, Van Gogh sold one, Van Gogh sold one painting when he was alive.
Did he even? I felt like he didn't like sell. I mean, he was so depressing.
I think he sold it to his brother.
Oh God! Oh my God!
Yeah, so it wasn't even to. Anyone.
I mean,
So there's a collector. The collector base for original Magic work is so that, it's kind of amazing. I mean, I've done a lot of work over the years for a lot of different games: D&D, Pathfinder, Warlord, Saga of the Storm, Kaijudo, Skylanders, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone.
Like greatest hits, basically.
I've done I've had work in all of those products, and I've never seen that in the collector base on the other side of those. So there's, there's the commission that we make, and then there's the secondary market, and then there's the web sales, the prints, the cards, and so forth. And that's how we as artists are able to make a living and pay for the things that we need to pay for.
Right. Like,
it's so demanding. I mean, I literally work 7 days a week 365 for the most part. I mean, maybe I'll have off for the holidays coming up. Give myself a day off to go hang with family and stuff. But for the most part, if you talk to artists across the board, we're working all the time,
right?
Because it's just very demanding. It demands a lot of attention to make a good painting, and so there's a lot of research that goes involved. There's that phase, and there's the reference, and then there's the drawing, the sketching, the painting, and then we go to final and go to a digital version or whatever. And so it's just a very demanding job. So to have the security of working on Magic is a blessing, and I'm really, really grateful for every opportunity I've ever gotten to work on the game.
I mean,
and later on in my career too. So far, I mean, I didn't start working on Magic until 2015.
Which was your first? Was that for the Unset? Or was it that came out? Or
yes,
what?
Yes, the Unset. Yes, that was
Yep.
the first set of stuff that I had done.
It's amazing how many new artists that started out in the Unsets have gone on to become like powerhouses. And I think you're on your way. It's like,
yeah, thank you.
And
yeah, it's just a matter of time, and getting that right
it's
card.
Frankly, I was surprised that I was like, when you wrote back, I was like, yes, because it's sometimes you're like, well, like shot in the dark, we'll just give it a shot. So I was thrilled that I got you on the line for this long, and I know that you got to go soon. So
Sure.
I will try to I'm going to gracefully say that thank you so much for the time taking the time to talk to me today. And
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
And now we'll pause for my stupid little game for the Patreon.
I enjoyed my chat with Chris, and if you did too, well, there's great news. You have not even heard the whole thing. However, you can, because Concepts and Legends is officially on Patreon, and there are so many goodies to be had. Your contributions, depending on the tier you choose, get you access to my schedule of upcoming interviews, access to uncut and unedited past interviews, bonus content where I ask artists to reveal things through hard-hitting journalism such as F*** Marry Kill, the Magic the Gathering version. Other incentives include submitting questions for artists that I will ask for you, and, for the truly devoted, a chance to receive artist proofs as a giveaway taken from the selection of cards featured in the Artist Proof Cube Reveal series. And if that wasn't enough, all members get the chance to be invited to bid on exclusive, one-time only deluxe editions of artist proofs from artists I have spoken to since the start of the show. Here's a refresher list if you're curious. And don't worry, I'll actually be announcing the first collaboration in a few weeks, but like Hitchcock, I'm going for a little suspense, a little build-up. And, of course, all patrons will have access to the Concepts and Legends Discord, where I will be lurking, waiting for new friends to cure my dreadful loneliness. So please, check out the Patreon in the links below and join up. It helps us bring you the best show we can, and hopefully make the best even better. Well, that's all I have for now. I feel like it did okay. Who knew that selling yourself could feel so empowering? I was worried it would be like back in the day when I used to escort the elderly across the street when I was an Eagle Scout for free. What am I even saying? Cut that last part out.
What part do you want me to cut out?
Oh my god, you totally fell for it. You didn't even know that was a joke. Oh man.
What was the joke?
Don't do this.
What am I doing exactly?
You know.
I honestly don't. If you want, you can escort me through the process. That would be helpful.
I will escort your head from your body.
Bye-bye.